Hello, welcome back to Woke Nation. This is the first episode of the new year, 2020. And I can't believe that we're actually into the second decade of the 2000s. On one hand, it seems like almost nothing's changed if you look at the what's going on in the world. Well, some things have changed. You have the whole thing that's going on with North Korea, but as far as the Middle East is concerned, it does not seem like a whole lot has changed ever since we went in there after September 2011, the 9/11 Twin Tower whole fiasco. Um, Now, of course, as far as technology and other things are concerned, a lot has changed, and it's rapidly changing every day. But to ring in the new year, we are the powers that be within our government, and then the powers that be in the Middle East determined that we couldn't ring in the new year of 2020 without some unrest and without the threat of World War III. Go figure. They couldn't just unwrap presents, celebrate the incarnation, and look forward to a happy new year. No, they couldn't do that. They had to kill American contractors. They had to attack our embassy in Iraq, and by they, I'm talking about the Iranian forces under Qasem Soleimani. Or at least that's who we're blaming for this whole situation. An American contractor was murdered, and then Iranian forces attacked the embassy in Iraq. And in retaliation, President Trump decided, well, I'm not going to just bomb a few sites and maybe kill a few of their soldiers. We're going to take out one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful, person in Iran, Qasem Soleimani. Soleimani, I think it is. I'm terrible with last names, and he's dead, so I'm not going to offend him. But yeah, that was President Trump's idea of a response. Now, I look at it two different ways. On the one hand, I am grateful that we have a president that does not take any what you would call guff from these swine. If you remember back to President Obama, the guy that was elected president before President Trump, Obama probably wouldn't have done a whole lot. In response to Iran's building of nuclear weapons and the like, he just kept sending them money, sending them money, sending them money, making vague threats that he never followed up on. And the thing about President Trump is that when he says something, he actually follows through and tries to do it. So he assassinated Qasem Soleimani. Now, again, on the one hand, I'm very grateful that we have a president that stands up for our people, for America, puts America first. And so if you attack even just one and kill just one of our contractors and attack our embassy, I mean, he's ready and willing to up the ante 1,000-fold, which is what he's essentially done to Iran, because now Iran is in a very precarious situation. I mean, think about it. Uh, the entire world is looking at them now to see what the response will be. The second most powerful man in their country has just been assassinated out of nowhere, seemingly. And so everyone's looking to them to see what is your response going to be. Are you going to retaliate? Are you going to show strength? What are you going to do? And so President Trump's put them in a very precarious situation in that sense, in that regard, because if they do nothing, then they look cowardly and weak and in front of the entire world. Um, I hear they've lodged a complaint with the UN, like anyone cares about that. Um, but if they do something, what are they going to do? Beyond declaring war, there really is nothing they can do that would match what President Trump has just done, unless they try to assassinate Mike Pence or Pompeo or something like that. Unless they do something like that, there really isn't a whole lot that they can do that would be of equal significance, carry the equal weight. And so yeah, it's put them in a really tough situation. So on the one hand, I'm very grateful to have a president that just doesn't take any guff from these swine, as they say. On the other hand, though, what are we doing still in the Middle East? That contractor would not have died if we were not messing around in the Middle East. Our embassy in Iraq would not have been attacked if we were not messing around in the Middle East. We should not be in the Middle East. Why are we in the Middle East? 20 years later, we are still in the Middle East fighting wars that we have no business fighting. When we went into Afghanistan, it was to find Osama bin Laden. We never found him until Obama came along and supposedly killed him. We never saw the body, so who really knows what happened? We attacked Iraq first because we had evidence that they were behind 9/11. Then that was disproved. Then we went into Iraq because then it was secondly because they wouldn't let the UN come in and see whether they were building weapons of mass. They had weapons of mass destruction. We had direct evidence that they had weapons of mass destruction. Then we went in there and that was found to be not true. That was bogus. So all these lies just kept falling apart. And finally, the last thing that they told us, now that we were in there, was Saddam Hussein's a bad guy. We couldn't let him live. He was killing his own people. Well, I'm sorry. There are a lot of people around, a lot of leaders around this world that kill their own people and do lots of heinous, horrible things. That does not mean that it is our business to attack and destroy that country and hang their leader. By that logic, we should invade China. We should invade North Korea. There's lots of places that we should invade. Um, so it just that makes no logical sense to say that our justification for going in there was that Saddam Hussein was a murderer that of his own people. That is just insane. That doesn't hold water. That is not a coherent reason to invade the country. We are not the world's policemen. But these are all things, these are all things that we've already made up our minds on. Some people think that we are the world's policemen. Some people think that we are not and that we shouldn't be. And that's just how it is, and people come up with their own theories about this and they hold to them despite what the evidence is, and they just flat out, they just don't care. So who knows? But what's undeniable, and Tulsi Gabbard's very good on this front, is that it does not benefit us in any way to invade these countries and think that at the end of a gun barrel you can force democracy on people. It just does not work like that. Never has, and it never will. But we don't seem to learn that lesson. We never seem to learn that lesson. We think that this guy's bad over here, so let's go in there, let's kill him, disrupt everything, and these people will be grateful to us to have America in their country. They think that these neocons like John Bolton and Mike Pompeo, they think that the world is just aching and dying for America to invade their country and turn everything into an Americanized version of ourselves, a crude parody of what freedom is supposed to look like. And that's just not how it is. And that's not how people see us. Proof in the pudding is that Iraq, I believe it's Iraq, is just voting or has just voted. And it was thought to be that this would be a unanimous vote to pass their government, passed in their government. To say that America needs to leave now from Iraq. The Iraqi people, the Iraqi government, they are a sovereign nation, and they are voting basically to say to us, get your troops out of our country. We don't want you here. And these are supposedly people that just are dying to have America there, giving them freedom. The Iraqi people don't want us there. The Iranian people don't want us there. The Afghani people don't want us there. And back in the day when they used to talk about Iran, as this big monstrous threat and everything, nobody ever took the time to think, what if you were an Iranian? Just think about it for a second. If Iraq had invaded Canada and Mexico, would we not be building up our army here in the United States in response to that? And yet, in the United States, we think it's insane that Iran is trying to build its military up, trying to get nuclear weapons, when we have troops in Afghanistan and Iraq. We're invading every country under any pretext that comes into our mind. We bomb Syria, blame Assad for gas attacks that there is no coherent evidence for, no tangible concrete proof for. And then we wonder why Iran wants to actually beef up its army, produce uranium, I mean, create nuclear weapons, nuclear powered weapons. We act like this is a shock. Why would they want to do that except to hurt the United States? No, actually, maybe they just want to defend their borders. I'm not defending Iran. I think they're a corrupt regime. I think there are some good people there, but they're underneath a corrupt, cruel regime. But it's common sense that if a world superpower attacks Iraq and Afghanistan, then you might be next, and you're going to build up your army, and you're going to want weaponry to fight back with, modern technology. So nobody ever thinks about it like that because the mainstream media doesn't give you the opportunity. They just talk about impeachment, 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 impeachment. Nobody cares about impeachment. Okay. Uh, Newsflash to Nancy Pelosi: until you send the impeachment articles over to the Senate, they're null and void. They mean absolutely nothing. Um, so yeah, that's where we're at. Nancy Pelosi still has the articles, now that we're in 2020, still sitting on them, thinking that Mitch McConnell is going to cave to her whims and listen to her dictate the way that the trial should go. He's not going to listen to her. Why should he? She has no leverage over him. Her person, her man on the inside over there in the Senate is Chuck Schumer, who Mitch McConnell is not going to listen to. He's the minority leader. Who cares about him? So it's not going anywhere, and it's not going to. They're going to try to drag it out and drag it out and drag it out until we come up towards the election, and at least it'll somewhat tarnish President Trump's name. Potentially. I think more likely is that it's just embittered his voters and tightened up his base so that more people support him more ravenously than they would have, more rabidly than they would have before. Now he's a martyr. He's persecuted even more than he was before. So they've really created a monster more than anything. What else is going on? On a personal note, I don't very often talk about personal life on this show. It's more about theology and current events. But we have very soon we will have a new arrival in the Hayes home, and it's of course exciting and nerve wracking. Coming down the stretch, 36, 37 weeks. These things are, anything can happen. I work an hour away from home. Her water could break. Who knows? And I could be an hour away. I could be in the middle of a job. Who knows what's going on? And I don't get back in time, or will I get back in time? Will an ambulance get here in time? She can't drive it for water. There's a million and one things that go through your mind. Unplanned scenarios that could pop up at a second's notice. So we're just praying a lot about it. Who knows what's going to happen? But the one thing that's given us kind of pause for concern is that right now it's a girl. She's still breech. She's still head, legs down, and that's not how it's supposed to be if you're going to have a natural birth. So there is that, and anyone who listens to this, if you could take the time to maybe pray about it, if you have an opportunity, then I would appreciate it, as always. So yeah, that's something that's going on right now too. That's kind of pushed. It's been a little while, longer than usual, since I put out a podcast episode just for that reason. There's so much going on, getting ready for this new arrival, this baby, and looking at doctors, going to appointments for various private reasons. Nothing crazy or anything, but this is a high risk pregnancy, just like our first one was, and so there's more appointments than normal. I think every month or so she had to go for an ultrasound, check the baby's heart rate, all that kind of stuff. Everything looks good on that end, but that's what you got to do. So. But now it's coming down to the wire, 36, 37 weeks. Term is 40, and so I think tomorrow we have to plan the C-section, and then hopefully between now and then the water doesn't break, and craziness ensue. Now she had a natural birth for our first child, and that went pretty well. They had to induce her because I forget why, but 37 weeks, which she is now. She's 37 now, today. Every Sunday it's a new week. So Yeah. So this will be a new experience, and I'd appreciate prayers for her as well. You know, it's going to be a new experience having a C-section. Her mom did. My mom had five of them. You know, I have four brothers, five boys altogether that she had, and all five births were C-sections. They were not natural births. And I think her mom they had two kids, and both of them were C-sections as well. So it's crazy, you know. But she at least has people she can talk to that have gone through this before, not recently, you know. But that's an encouragement in a sense because recently, you know, they had kids 10, 20, 20 years ago, you know, and medicine has evolved, pain management has evolved, the surgery has evolved. You know, I'm sure the recovery times are nowhere near as long as they used to be, that type of thing. So we can only hope for them, pray for the best, and we have reason to hope for the best, you know, because of the way things have progressed in medicine. But regardless of all that, still a surgery is a surgery, and this is a major surgery. So it is something that, you know, is concerning and nerve-wracking at the same time, no matter what. And then you don't know if between now and the scheduled C-section whether the her water will break. You just have no idea. You know, that could happen, and I could be an hour and a half away working, and then I got to drop what I'm doing there and fly back here. But still, it's an hour and a half. That's an eternity when it comes to your water breaking, or maybe it isn't. You know, that's the other thing is like you don't really know about some of this stuff. This is, you know, new territory, fresh ground, that we're going into. So it's hard to really say what can happen or what might not happen. You can only hope. Really, what it comes down to is you can only pray and have faith in God, trust in the Lord in all your ways, and trust in the Lord, and He will direct your path. You know, that's the option we're left with. And I learned that lesson with our first pregnancy without going into any details. It was a very especially the first 2 trimesters were very stressful. So I was left with absolutely no other option but to pray and trust God. That was it. I had no choice because there were things going on that were totally beyond my control, and hers as well. And so we were left with no other option, you know. And sometimes, you know, not that God is the instrument of evil or anything, certainly not, but He uses particular situations to teach you to trust Him, and I think He did that in that situation, our first child, and here we are again. So you know, it's everything's a learning experience, and you just learn to trust God, and you know, if you're in His hand, then He will bring about good. Um, through every situation. Now, things may not always turn out the way you would want them to, but you know He has a plan and a reason for everything, and that's where trust comes in. That's why I do not like it when people talk about faith as this kind of blind leap. You know, faith is actually more akin to trust. You know, it's believing that in something because of for evidential reasons or experiential reasons, not just this blind, I'm going to leap off a cliff and hope somebody catches me. You know, you have reason to believe that such and such, or He, God, Lord of God Almighty, will be there to catch you, to whatever. You know, it's experience based, it's evidential based. It's not a blind leap. It's not a reaching and clawing in the darkness. So yeah, but this is another test of that here. You know, going into a C-section, like I said, fresh territory, and we can only hope that now she's a lot bigger than our first child was. He was small when he came out. I think he was 5 pounds 11 ounces, 5 pounds 6 ounces when he left the hospital because he was in the NICU for about a week and a half or so. Now she, I think, is already 6 pounds, so she's big, and you know, she's really stretching Jen's tummy, so she can barely get around anymore. So, you know, it's been interesting, and you know that limits my time with the show here. So yeah, we'll just see what happens. I'll keep everybody updated. In the meantime, lastly, just a little bit of show news. For right now, the entire everything that I do through the show, at least, will be through YouTube. I've stopped putting the show on iTunes and through Podbean, the app, for right now, because it's I just don't have the time, and there's a few other reasons as well. I'm just putting everything. This is it. These videos for right now, at least, not forever, but for right now. While I work on a few things, I have an area that I'm focusing on, that I'll be focusing on more, and so it'll be easier if I can just put out these videos. YouTube is highly accessible. More people use YouTube than they do iTunes, so I'll focus on YouTube, trying to get word out about the show on there rather than iTunes. View wise, it was maybe half and half. Half of the listeners would be on YouTube, the other half on iTunes. It's kind of split. So, hopefully everybody that was listening on iTunes will also come over to YouTube and keep following on YouTube, and not just abandon listening to the show. Um, I wish I had a little more heads up, but there's just so much craziness going on right now. It's hard to keep up with things. Um, but yeah, there's a book I'm working on, so that's kind of why I want to focus just on putting this out on YouTube for now, so I'm not pulled in so many different directions. And I'll fill you in on that as things progress. But it'll be on my experiences in addiction and kind of why in the culture today I don't think that this issue of opioid dependence or drug addiction is going anywhere. I think it's only going to intensify, and more people are going to die, and it's not going anywhere. And I realize that's a dark thought, but there's reasons for it, and that I'll outline in the book. It'll be a short book, but I'll give you more news about that as it comes along and as I get writing it. And perhaps I may put out some of the chapters on the what do you call it? The blog that I created a while ago. I've only done a couple articles on there, but I may start putting some of the chapters, like samples on them or something like that, on the blog so you all can read them. But in the meantime, Happy New Year 2020, and good night, and God be with you.